There's a specific kind of man in America. You've met him, maybe you live with him, maybe you are him, and that's why you're watching this video at 1 in the morning instead of sleeping like a normal person. He's the guy who pulls into the driveway with a 1968 Camaro on a flatbed. The thing has no engine, no interior. The floor pans are basically a suggestion. There's a family of raccoons that have been paying rent in the trunk since the Carter administration. And he gets out of the truck, looks at this rusted-out skeleton, and says the words that have ended more marriages than infidelity and gambling combined. She's got good bones. Good bones. Sir, there are no bones. There is barely a car. What you have purchased for $4,000 cash is a metaphor. You bought a metaphor, and you brought it home, and now it's sitting on your wife's herb garden. So today we're going to talk about why. Why do these men do this? Why do they spend $25,000 and 7 years of their lives restoring a car that, when finished, will be worth maybe 12 grand on a good day? Why do they choose, of their own free will, to lie underneath a leaking transmission at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, getting hot gear oil in their eye when they could be inside watching the game like a sane human? Because it's not about the car. It was never about the car. And once you understand that, everything starts to make sense. Let's start with the obvious one. Time travel. That's what this is. He's not restoring a Mustang. He's restoring 1973. He's restoring being 17 years old with a full head of hair. And his biggest problem in life was whether Sherry from biology class was going to say yes to prom. He's restoring a version of himself that didn't have a mortgage, didn't have a prostate, and didn't know what the word deductible meant. When he hears that small block Chevy fire up for the first time after 8 months of work, that lumpy idle, that rumpa that vibrates the windows of every house on the block, he is not hearing an engine. He is hearing 1973. He is hearing his dad's garage. He is hearing a girl who, by the way, is now a grandmother in Phoenix and doesn't remember his name. But for 45 seconds in that driveway, with that cam thumping through those headers, he's 17 again. Tell me what therapist charges less than that. I'll wait. And listen, this is also why he insists on the original engine. He doesn't want a crate motor. A crate motor would be smarter. A crate motor would be cheaper. A crate motor would actually run. But no, he needs the matching numbers 383 stroker, because the matching numbers car is the one that takes him back. A modern engine just takes him to the grocery store. Now, the second reason, and this one's important, control. Think about this man's life. He works a job where his boss is 28 years old, has a beard that looks drawn on, and just told him in a Zoom meeting that they're pivoting the workflow synergies. He has no idea what that means. Nobody does. Nobody has ever known what that means. His 401k is being managed by an algorithm that learned about money from a TikTok. His knees hurt. His doctor told him to cut out red meat, alcohol, dairy, gluten, and stress, which, mathematically, leaves him with steamed broccoli and dying. His daughter is dating a guy named Kai who makes ambient music and doesn't believe in jobs. He cannot fix any of this. None of it. He is powerless. But that carburetor on that 1970 Chevelle, he can fix that. He can take it apart. He can rebuild it. He can put it back together. And when he's done, it works. There's a problem. He applies effort. The problem is solved. Do you understand how rare that is for a man over 45? That is the only domain left in his entire life where cause and effect still function correctly. That's why he gets so weirdly intense about it. Why he'll stay out there till 2 in the morning trying to get the timing right. Because in that garage, under that hood, he is not a middle-aged man with a financial advisor named Brent who keeps mispronouncing his name. He is a god, a small god, a god of one 1972 Plymouth Barracuda. But a god, now we have to talk about the wife. Because every video about this gets comments from women and they're all the same comment, and it's, "My husband has 3 of these in the backyard, send help." Ma'am, I cannot send help. There is no help. The help isn't coming. You married a man who, on some deep, primal level, looked at a thing that didn't work and instead of throwing it away like a normal person said, "I see potential." Do you understand what that means? That same instinct, that same broken thing could be beautiful instinct? That's why he married you. I'm sorry. I know, but it's true. The man who looks at a '67 Mustang fastback with no floor and says, "I can save her," is the same man who looked at you on your worst day in 2004 and said the same thing. It's a package deal. The hero complex doesn't have an off switch. It just gets reassigned. So when you ask him to get rid of the project car, what you're really asking is for him to admit that some things can't be fixed. And he won't. He physically cannot. Because if some things can't be fixed, then maybe his back can't be fixed, and his retirement can't be fixed, and the relationship with his brother who hasn't called in 9 years can't be fixed. So that car? That car is getting fixed. That car is the front line in a war he is having with the entire concept of entropy, and he is going to win, even if it kills him, even if it kills the marriage, even if the car never actually moves. Reason number 3, and this is the one nobody talks about, other men. This is a love language. This is the love language for American men over a certain age. They cannot hug. They cannot say, "I missed you." They cannot say, "I love you, brother." That's not on the menu. What they can do is walk over to another guy's open hood, stare into it for 45 seconds in complete silence, and say, "What you running for a cam in there?" That's it. That's the whole conversation. That's "I love you." That's "I see you." That's "Your existence has meaning to me," translated through a Holly 4-barrel. And then they'll spend 3 hours talking about gear ratios. They will not talk about their fathers. They will not talk about their feelings. They will not talk about the lump their wife found, or the kid who isn't speaking to them, or the fact that they cried in the truck last Tuesday for no reason at all. But they will talk about the proper torque spec on a flywheel bolt for 90 minutes. And they will leave that garage feeling, somehow, healed. You take that away from these guys. You take away the car shows, the swap meets, the parts store on a Saturday morning, and you have a generation of men with no friends. Zero. You think I'm exaggerating? Ask any married woman over 50 how many friends her husband has that he sees regularly without her organizing it. Go ahead, ask. I'll be here. The car is the friend delivery system. The car is the excuse to stand next to another human and not be alone. Now, finally, the last one. And this is the saddest one, and we have to be honest about it. He's building a thing he can leave behind. He doesn't say this out loud. He would rather chew tin foil than say this out loud. But somewhere, around 55, 60 years old, a man does the math. And the math is bad. The math says there's less road in front of him than behind him. The math says the company he gave 32 years to will replace him in a week with someone younger who doesn't know how to use a phone. The math says nobody in 100 years is going to remember his name. But that car. If he gets it right, if he really gets it right, that car will outlive him. His grandson, a kid who right now is 4 years old and obsessed with a cartoon about robot fish, will one day, 30 years from now, fire up that big block, and it'll cough, and it'll catch, and it'll settle into that idol. And the kid will go, "My grandpa built this." And in that moment, briefly, the man wins. He beats the math, he beats the clock, he beats the pivot to workflow synergies. He's still here, he's in the rumble. So if you're a woman watching this and your husband just dragged home a 1972 pickup that has a bird's nest where the air filter used to be, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to walk out to that garage tonight. Don't say anything. Just stand there, hand him a beer, look at the car for a minute, and say, "What are you running for a cam in there?" I'm telling you, just try it. You will see a man cry standing up. You will see the husband from 1997 appear in your garage like a ghost. He will not know what to do with the feeling. He will probably just say Edelbrock and look at the floor. And that's okay. That's enough. That's the whole thing. Because at the end of the day, he's not really restoring a car. He's restoring himself. And honestly, I hope he finishes. I hope they all finish. I hope every rusted-out Camaro and forgotten Chevelle and seized-up Barracuda in every backyard in America one day fires up and pulls out of that driveway with some old guy behind the wheel grinning like a teenager, going absolutely nowhere in particular. Because some things are worth saving, even when the math says they aren't. Especially when the math says they aren't. If this video hit a little too close to home, do me a favor. Send it to him. Don't say anything. Just send it. He'll know. And if you're the guy in the garage right now, watching this on your phone with greasy hands, get back to work. She's not going to restore herself.